Prehistoric France is the period in the human occupation of the geographical area covered by present-day France, which extended through prehistory, and ended in the Iron Age with the Celtic Latine culture. Stone tools indicate that early humans were present in France at least 1.57 million years ago. The Paleolithic, Lower Paleolithic stone tools discovered at Lesignan-le-Sébi in 2009 indicate that early humans were present in France at least 1.57 million years ago. France includes Oldowan and Équeurlian sites from earlier non-modern hominini species, most notably Homo erectus and Homo heidelbergensis. To Tharago 149 560,000 years. Tortavelman is a proposed subspecies of the hominid Homo erectus, the 450,000-year-old fossil remains of whom were discovered in the Arago cave in Tortavel. The Grotte du Vallonnet near Menton contained simple stone tools dating to 1 million to 1.05 million years BC. Cave sites were exploited for habitation, but the hunter-gatherers of the Paleolithic era also possibly built shelters such as those identified in connection with Équeurlian tools at Grotte du Lazaret and Terra Amata near Nice in France. Excavations at Terra Amata found traces of the earliest known domestication of fire in Europe, from 400,000 BC. Middle Paleolithic. The Neanderthals, the earliest human species to occupy Europe, are thought to have arrived there around 300,000 BC, but seem to have died out by 30,000 BC, presumably unable to compete with modern humans during a period of cold weather. Numerous Neanderthal or Mousterian artifacts have been found from this period, some using the Levallois technique, a distinctive type of flint knapping developed by hominids during the Lower Paleolithic but most commonly associated with the Neanderthal industries of the Middle Paleolithic. Importantly, recent findings suggest that Neanderthals and modern humans may have interbred. Upper Paleolithic. The earliest modern humans, Cro-Magnons, were present in Europe by 43,000 years ago during a long interglacial period of particularly mild climate, when Europe was relatively warm and food was plentiful. When they arrived in Europe, they brought with them sculpture, engraving, painting, body ornamentation, music and the painstaking decoration of utilitarian objects. Some of the oldest works of art in the world, such as the cave paintings at Lascaux in southern France, are datable to shortly after this migration. European Paleolithic cultures are divided into several chronological subgroups. Aurignacian, responsible for Venus figurines, cave paintings at the Chauvet cave. Perigordian, use of this term is debated. Chateaubriandian, culture derived from the earlier Neanderthal. Mousterian industry, as it made use of Levallois cores and represents the period when Neanderthals and modern humans occupied Europe together. Gravettian, responsible for Venus figurines, cave paintings at the Cosca cave. Solutrian, Magdalenian, thought to be responsible for the cave paintings at Pechmerle, Lascaux, the Trois Frères cave and the Rouffignac cave, also known as the Cave of the 100 Mammoths. It possesses the most extensive cave system of the Périgord in France, with more than 8 kilometers of underground passageways. Experts sometimes refer to the Franco-Cantabrian region to describe this densely populated region of southern France and northern Spain in the late Paleolithic. The Mesolithic. For the Paleolithic to the Mesolithic, the Magdalenian culture evolved. In southwest France and Spain, one finds the Azilian culture of the late glacial maximum, which coexisted with similar early Mesolithic European cultures such as the Tiongerian of northwestern, the Arensbergian of northern, and the Swiderian of northeastern Europe, all succeeding the Fader Mesocomplex. The Azilian culture was followed by the Sauveterran in southern France and Switzerland, the Tardenoisian in northern France, the Maglemosian in northern Europe. Archaeologists are unsure whether Western Europe saw a Mesolithic immigration. If Gravettian or Epipaleolithic immigrants to Europe were indeed Indo-European, then populations speaking non-Indo-European languages are obvious candidates for previous Paleolithic remnants. The Vascons of the Pyrenees present the strongest case, since the language is related to none other in the world, and the Basque population has a unique genetic profile. The disappearance of the Doggerland affected the surrounding territories. The Doggerland population had to go as far as northern France and eastern Ireland to escape from the floods. The Neolithic period lasted in northern Europe for approximately 3,000 years. It is characterized by the so-called Neolithic Revolution, a transitional period that included the adoption of agriculture, the development of tools and pottery, and the growth of larger, more complex settlements. There was an expansion of peoples from Southwest Asia into Europe. This diffusion across Europe, from the Aegean to Britain, took about 2,500 years. Some archaeologists believe that this expansion, marking the eclipse of Mesolithic culture, coincided with the introduction of Indo-European speakers, whereas linguists prefer to see Indo-European languages introduced during the succeeding Bronze Age. Within the framework of this latter theory, which remains the most commonly accepted model of Indo-European expansion, Neolithic peoples in Europe are called Pre-Indo-Europeans or Old Europe. Many European Neolithic groups share basic characteristics, such as living in small-scale family-based communities, subsisting on domestic plants and animals supplemented with the collection of wild plant foods, and with hunting, and producing handmade pottery. Archaeological sites from the Neolithic in France include artifacts from the linear pottery culture, the Rosen culture, and the Chassaean culture. The name given to the late Neolithic pre-Beaker culture that spread throughout the plains and plateau of France, including the Seine Basin and the upper Loire valleys. Armorican and northern French Neolithic culture is based on traditions of the linear pottery culture or Limburg pottery in association with the Refogat culture. It is most likely from the Neolithic that date the megalithic monuments, such as the dolmens, menhirs, stone circles and chamber tombs, found throughout France, the largest selection of which are in the Brittany and Auvergne regions. The most famous of these are the Carnac stones and the stones at Saint-Sulpice de Fallerens. The Copper Age. During the Chalcolithic Copper Age, a transitional age from the Neolithic to the Bronze Age, France shows evidence of the Senois-Marne culture and the Beaker culture. The Senois-Marne culture or Somme culture is the name given by archaeologists to the final culture of the Neolithic in northern France around the Oise River and Marne River. It is most famous for its gallery-grave megalithic tombs which incorporate a porthole slab separating the entrance from the main burial chamber. In the chalk valley of the Marne River, rock-cut tombs were dug to a similar design. Beginning about 2600 BC, the Artenatian culture, a part of the larger European megalithic culture, developed in Dordogne, possibly as a reaction to the advance of Danubian peoples over western France. Armed with typical arrows, they took over all Atlantic France and Belgium by 2400 BC, establishing a stable border with the Indo-Europeans near the Rhine that would remain stable for more than a millennium. In the southeast, several groups whose culture had evolved from Chassean culture also built megaliths. The beaker culture is a wide phenomenon that expanded over most of France, excluding the Massif Central, without significantly altering the pre-existing cultures. The Bronze Age. The early Bronze Age archaeological cultures in France include the transitional beaker culture, the tumulus culture and urnfield culture. Bronze Age sites in Brittany are believed to have grown out of beaker roots, with some Wessex culture and Unetice culture influence. Some scholars think that the urnfield culture represents an origin for the Celts as a distinct cultural branch of the Indo-European family. This culture was preeminent in Central Europe during the Late Bronze Age. The Urnfield period saw a dramatic increase in population in the region, probably due to innovations in technology and agricultural practices. Some archaeologists date the arrival of several non-Indo-European peoples to this period, including the Iberians in southern France and Spain, the Ligures on the Mediterranean coast, and the Vascons in southwest France and Spain. The Iron Age. The spread of ironworking led to the development of the Hallstatt culture directly from the Urnfield. Proto-Celtic, the latest common ancestor of all known Celtic languages, is generally considered to have been spoken at the time of the late Urnfield or early Hallstatt cultures. In the early 1st millennium BC, the Hallstatt culture was succeeded by the Latine culture, which developed out of the Hallstatt culture without any definite cultural break. Under the impetus of considerable Mediterranean influence from Greek, and later Etruscan civilizations, the Latine culture developed and flourished during the Late Iron Age in eastern France, Switzerland, Austria, southwest Germany, the Czech Republic, and Hungary. Farther to the north extended the contemporary pre-Roman Iron Age culture of northern Germany and Scandinavia. In addition, Greeks and Phoenicians settled outposts like Marseille in this period. By the 2nd century BC, Celtic France was called Gaul by the Romans, and its people were called Gauls. The people to the north were called Belgae, the peoples of the southwest of France were called the Aquitani by the Romans, and may have been Celtiberians or Vascons. Timeline. Prehistoric and Iron Age France. All dates are BC 1,800,000. Appearance of stone tools in France. 1,570,000 stone tools at Lesignan-le-Sebie. 1,050,000 to 1,000,000 stone tools at Grotte du Vallon at near Menton. 900,000 beginning of Guns glaciation. 700,000 oldest shaped tools in Brittany. 600,000 beginning of Guns Mindel interglacial. Appearance of Homo heidelbergensis in Europe. 450,000 Tortavelman. 410,000 beginning of Mindel glaciation. Abvillian culture, taming of fire. 400,000 Mindel II, shards of Proto-Levallois tools. 400,000 to 380,000 traces of first domestication of fire at Terra Amata. 300,000 beginning of Mindel IS's interglacial. 300,000 appearance of Neanderthals in Europe. 200,000 beginning of RIS's glaciation. 190,000 RIS's 2, 140,000 RIS's 3, 130,000 beginning of RIS's WURM interglacial. 70,000 beginning of WURM glaciation. 62,000 WURMI2 interglacial. 57,000 Brorup interglacial. 55,000 WURM2, 40,000 Laufen interglacial. Arrival of first modern humans in Europe. 35,000 WURMIA. Chataperonian culture, 33,000. Mask of La Roche-Cotard, a Mousterian artifact, 32,000. Aurignacian culture, 30,000. First statuettes and engravings in France. Disappearance of Neanderthals, 28,000. Ars interglacial, 27,500. WURMAIIB, 25,000. Pordorf interglacial, 23,000. WURMAIIC, 18,000. End of WURM glaciation, 18,692. Beginning of Solitarian culture, 16,000. Cold spell, 15,000. Magdalenian culture, 15,300. Lasso, 14,500. Middle Magdalenian. Bowling oscillation, 14,100. Cold spell, 14,000. Alarod oscillation, 13,500. Upper Magdalenian, 13,000. Hamburg culture, 10,300. Cold spell, 9,500. Beginning of Holocene, 7,000. Domestication of the sheep, 6,900. Domestication of the dog, 4,800. Appearance of linear pottery culture in France, 4,650. Oldest Neolithic village in France, Cortezon in the Vaucluse, 4,000. Neolithic Chassaean culture village of Bercy, 3,610. Appearance of first megaliths in France, 3,430. Chassaean culture village of Saint-Michel-du-Touch near Toulouse, 3,430. Appearance of Rosen culture at Baume de Gonville in Haute-Savoie, 3,250. Expansion of Chassaean culture in the south of France, from the Lot to the Vaucluse, 3,190. Chassaean culture in Calvados, 2,530. Chassaean culture in Pas-de-Calais, 2,450. End of Chassaean culture in Erloya, 2,400. End of Chassaean culture in Saint-Mita, 2,300. Village at Pontiau of the Beaker culture, 1800. Beginning of Bronze Age in France, 800. Appearance in France via the Rhine and the Moselle and expanding into Champagne and Bourgogne of the Urnfield culture, 725. Beginning of Hallstatt culture, 680. Founding of Antibes, the first Greek colony in France, 600. Founding of Massalia by the Greeks from the Ionian city of Phaeacia, 450. The Celts of Latine appear in Champagne. They expand to the Garonne, forming what will come to be called the Gaul civilization, 390. The Celtic chief Brennus sacks Rome, 121. Roman occupation of Gallia Narbonensis, 118. Founding of the Roman colony Narbomatius, 58 to 51. Conquest of Gaul by Julius Caesar.